Ladies and gentlemen, love is one of the greatest desires of the human heart. From the moment we understand its power, we seek it, long for it, and often struggle to grasp its true meaning. But what if I told you that love is not just a feeling, nor merely an accident of fate? Love is a divine design, a sacred journey, and a reflection of something far greater than ourselves. God's love. God has a plan for your love life. It is not built on fleeting emotions, nor on cultural trends that change with time. Instead, his plan is founded on principles that bring joy, peace, and lasting fulfillment. Love, as God intended, is more than attraction. It is a commitment, a responsibility, and a blessing. It is not meant to enslave you in heartbreak, but to set you free in the beauty of a relationship that glorifies him. However, the path to true love is not always smooth. Many will experience disappointment, heartbreak, and confusion. But do not mistake challenges as signs of failure. Rather, see them as part of God's refining process. The struggles you face in love are not obstacles to avoid, but lessons to embrace, shaping you into the person who can love as God intended. God's plan for love is rooted in selflessness. The love he calls us to is not selfish or temporary, but enduring and sacrificial. It mirrors the love he has shown to us, a love that gives, forgives, and perseveres. When we align our hearts with his purpose, we no longer chase fleeting desires, but instead we prepare ourselves for a love that is strong, pure, and eternal. When you trust God's plan for your love life, you will find that his way is always best. He knows your heart, he knows your needs, and in his perfect timing, he will lead you to the love that will truly bless your life. Love is not merely a human emotion or an instinctive attraction. It is a divine gift, intentionally designed by God. From the very beginning, love has been central to God's creation and his relationship with humanity. When God created the world, he did so out of love, and when he formed human beings, he placed within them the capacity to love and be loved. This ability to give and receive love is not accidental. It is a sacred part of our design, meant to reflect his divine nature. The Bible teaches that God is love, 1 John 4:8, which means that love originates from him. It is not something we invented or something we can fully understand apart from him. Because love is divine in nature, it carries a deeper purpose than simply making us feel happy or fulfilled. While love certainly brings joy, its primary purpose is to reflect God's character, to build meaningful relationships, and to guide us toward a life that honors him. One of the most beautiful demonstrations of love in Scripture is found in the relationship between Adam and Eve. When God created Adam, he declared, "It is not good for the man to be alone." Genesis 2:18. This statement reveals that love and companionship were part of God's plan from the very beginning. He created Eve as a suitable partner for Adam, not just to satisfy human longing, but to establish the foundation of love, unity, and mutual support. Their relationship was meant to mirror the deep and sacrificial love that God has for his people. Love is also a means by which we grow spiritually. It challenges us to move beyond selfishness and into selflessness. When we truly love others, whether in marriage, family, or friendships, we are called to be patient, kind, forgiving, and sacrificial. These qualities are not always easy to develop, but they shape us into people who reflect God's love more fully. In this way, love is not only a gift, but also a responsibility, one that requires us to nurture it with wisdom, humility, and faith. Furthermore, God's love is unconditional, and his plan for love reflects that same principle. Human love, when left to its own devices, often becomes conditional. It is given and withdrawn based on circumstances, emotions, or personal desires. But divine love, the kind that God desires for us to experience, is different. It is steadfast, enduring, and committed. This is the love that sustains marriages through trials, that strengthens families through hardships, and that allows friendships to stand the test of time. Because love is a gift from God, it should never be treated casually or selfishly. It is meant to be cherished, protected, and nurtured according to His guidance. The world often distorts love, presenting it as something shallow or transactional. But when we recognize love as a divine gift, we approach it with the reverence and care it deserves. By following God's principles for love, we open ourselves to relationships that bring true fulfillment, lasting joy, and spiritual growth. Love is not meant to be a random or chaotic experience. It is not something left to chance, nor is it purely based on emotions that come and go. God, in His infinite wisdom, has designed love with a clear purpose and a well-structured blueprint. Just as an architect carefully plans a building to ensure its strength and longevity, God has established principles that guide love and relationships toward fulfillment, stability, and spiritual growth. One of the fundamental aspects of God's blueprint for love is that it is built on a foundation of commitment. In a world that often promotes temporary relationships based on personal satisfaction, God calls us to something deeper. Love, according to His design, is not about personal gain, but about selfless giving. This is why marriage, as described in the Bible, is a covenant rather than just a contract. A contract can be broken when circumstances change, but a covenant is a sacred and lasting promise, one that mirrors God's unwavering love for us. Another key element in God's design for love is purity. Love that is rooted in purity is not corrupted by selfish desires or fleeting passions. Purity in love means approaching relationships with honesty, respect, and a desire to honor God, rather than simply fulfilling personal needs. It requires patience and self-discipline, recognizing that true love is not built overnight, but grows over time through trust and faithfulness. Purity also involves guarding our hearts and minds from influences that distort the true meaning of love, whether through unhealthy relationships, unrealistic expectations, or worldly temptations. God's plan for love also emphasizes the importance of communication and understanding. Love is not sustained by emotions alone, but by the ability to listen, to express feelings honestly, and to resolve conflicts with grace and wisdom. Many relationships fail not because love is absent, but because people do not follow the principles of healthy communication. The Bible teaches us to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1:19. These words serve as a reminder that love flourishes where there is patience, humility, and a willingness to understand rather than simply be understood. Moreover, love, according to God's blueprint, is centered on service. Love is not about demanding what we want, but about seeking to uplift and support the other person. Jesus Himself demonstrated the highest form of love when He said, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." John 15:13. While not every act of love requires literal sacrifice, the principle remains the same. Love grows strongest when it is rooted in a desire to give rather than to receive. By following God's blueprint for love, we move beyond fleeting emotions and into relationships that are built to last. His plan is not one of confusion or heartache, but one of clarity, purpose, and enduring joy. When we align our hearts with His divine design, we discover that love is not just a passing experience, but a lifelong journey towards something greater than ourselves. Love is one of the most beautiful experiences a person can have, but it is also one of the most tested. No great love story exists without obstacles, and no strong relationship is formed without trials. While many see challenges in love as signs of failure or incompatibility, God sees them as opportunities for growth, refinement, and deeper understanding. His plan for love is not free from hardship, but rather it is strengthened through endurance and faith. One of the most common challenges in love is miscommunication and misunderstanding. Even in the strongest relationships, differences in personality, upbringing, and expectations can create moments of confusion or frustration. However, these difficulties are not meant to divide, but to teach patience, humility, and the art of truly listening. God calls us to approach love with a heart that is slow to anger and quick to understand. When disagreements arise, they should not be met with pride or stubbornness, but with a willingness to seek reconciliation and clarity. Love grows deeper when both individuals learn to communicate with honesty and grace. Another major trial in love is the test of time and endurance. Many relationships begin with excitement and passion, but as time passes, the reality of commitment sets in. There will be seasons of difficulty, moments of doubt, and times when love feels more like a choice than an emotion. This is where God's wisdom becomes essential. Love, as designed by Him, is not meant to be sustained by feelings alone, but by faith, perseverance, and a commitment to honor one another, even in the hardest moments. In every great relationship, there are times of sacrifice and selflessness, where one must choose to love even when it is difficult. Additionally, external influences and temptations pose challenges in love. The world often promotes a view of love that is temporary and self-serving, where people are encouraged to leave relationships the moment they become inconvenient. Social pressures, temptations, and distractions can create doubt or dissatisfaction. However, God's plan teaches that true love is built on trust and faithfulness. When both individuals keep their focus on Him, they find the strength to resist temptation and the wisdom to navigate challenges with integrity. A love that withstands trials is one that refuses to be shaken by outside forces. Perhaps one of the hardest trials in love is overcoming past wounds and fears. Many enter relationships carrying emotional baggage, pain from past experiences, broken trust, or fears of abandonment. These burdens can make it difficult to fully embrace love and trust another person. However, God's plan is one of healing. He does not intend for past pain to define future love. Through faith, patience, and openness, love can be a source of restoration, helping individuals overcome their fears and embrace the fullness of what God has in store for them. Challenges in love are not meant to destroy relationships, but to refine them. They reveal the depth of commitment, the power of forgiveness, and the strength of love when it is built on God's foundation. Those who trust in His plan will find that the trials they face only make their love stronger, deeper, and more resilient. True love is more than just emotion, attraction, or even commitment. It is a reflection of God's own love. Every relationship, whether in marriage, friendship, or family, is an opportunity to mirror the love that God has shown to us. The highest and purest form of love is not based on human desires, but on the divine nature of God Himself. His love is patient, kind, sacrificial, and enduring. And when we follow His example, our own relationships become deeper, stronger, and more meaningful. One of the most defining characteristics of God's love is that it is unconditional. Unlike human love, which is often based on circumstances or emotions, God's love does not change. He loves us not because we are perfect, but because love is part of His nature. In the same way, love in relationships should not be based solely on convenience, attraction, or personal benefit. True love remains steadfast, even when challenges arise, just as God's love remains constant despite our flaws and failures. A love that reflects God's love is not transactional. It does not say, "I will love you only if you love me in return." Instead, it is self-giving, seeking to bless others rather than simply being served. Another key aspect of God's love is forgiveness. Love that reflects God's heart is not free from mistakes or misunderstandings. but it is always willing to forgive. In our human nature, it is easy to hold grudges or to demand perfection from others, but God's love teaches us to extend grace. Just as he forgives us time and time again, we are called to show the same mercy in our relationships. Holding on to bitterness only creates division, while forgiveness brings healing, restoration, and unity. Love cannot grow where there is resentment, but it flourishes where there is a willingness to forgive and move forward. God's love is also sacrificial. The greatest demonstration of this was seen in Jesus Christ, who gave his life out of love for humanity. In the same way, love in relationships is not about seeking personal gain, but about making sacrifices for the good of the other person. This does not mean losing one's identity or constantly giving without receiving, but rather embracing a mindset that prioritizes love over selfishness. In marriage, for example, a husband and wife are called to serve one another, just as Christ served the church. When love is marked by sacrifice, it deepens beyond surface-level emotions and becomes something truly lasting and transformative. Additionally, love that mirrors God's love is faithful and enduring. In a world where relationships are often broken due to impatience or discontentment, God's love teaches us perseverance. Love is not about finding perfection in another person, but about growing together through life's ups and downs. Commitment means standing firm in love even when it is difficult, choosing to build instead of walking away. A love that reflects God's love is a love that brings peace, joy, and fulfillment. It is the kind of love that strengthens relationships, heals wounds, and ultimately leads us closer to him. Love is one of the most profound and beautiful gifts given by God. It is not meant to be a fleeting emotion or a pursuit driven by worldly desires, but a sacred journey guided by his divine plan. When we recognize love as a gift from God, we approach it with reverence, wisdom, and patience. His blueprint for love is not built on temporary passion, but on commitment, purity, and selflessness. Though challenges and trials may arise, they are not meant to weaken love, but to refine and strengthen it. Above all, true love reflects God's own love. Unconditional, forgiving, sacrificial, and enduring. It is not about seeking perfection in another person, but about growing together in faith, trust, and grace. Love is not merely about finding someone who meets our desires, but about becoming the kind of person who can love as God intended. If we trust in his timing, follow his principles, and allow him to shape our hearts, we will experience love in its purest and most fulfilling form. The world may define love in many ways, but only God's love remains unshaken, and only his plan leads to true joy, peace, and lifelong fulfillment. May we all seek a love that honors God, blesses others, and stands the test of time. Thank you.